Hello and welcome to North Country Ham. Thank you for joining us today. Today's video I'm going to continue on going through the amateur extra class question pools, using the 2020 to 2024 amateur extra class study guide that I have by Gordon West. Just continuing on through all the questions from where we left off on the previous video. If you haven't seen that, please go ahead and tune into that, watch that one. Goes through the first couple sections of the book and then the first section of questions that I was able to cover. This section, we're going to go into part 2 here, so please join in, watch along with me, let me know some feedback. And with that, let's get to part 2. Okay, so continue on here with the next question in rules and regs, the section that so what is the maximum power permitted on the 2200 meter band? Is it A, 50 watts PEP, B, 100 watts PEP, C, 1 watt EIRP, or 5 watts EIRP? 2200 meter band. I'm going to use, again, continue on using what I've got here in the ham shack with me while I'm studying. I've got my band plan on the wall here. I'm going to say, looking at my band plan, it's going to be 1 watt EIRP max. So I'm going to say C. So let's continue, see what it says here. Unlike most of the other amateur bands, the power limits on the 2200 meter low frequency LF band are specified in terms of equivalent isotropic radiated power, EIRP, not transmitter output power. Antennas on 2200 meters are very inefficient, so it will take a great deal more than 1 watt transmitted power to achieve anywhere near 1 watt EIRP. In fact, you're allowed the same full legal limit transmitter power of 1500 watts on 2200 meters as long as your EIRP does not exceed 1 watt. So the answer is C, 1 watt EIRP. Alright, let's move on here. Next question. Who must be in physical control of the station apparatus of an amateur station aboard any vessel or craft that is documented or registered in the United States? Okay. Is it A, only a person with FCC Marine Radio license grant? B, any person holding an FCC issued amateur license or who is authorized for alien reciprocal operation? C, only a person named an amateur station license grant. D, any person named in an amateur license station grant or a person holding an unrestricted radio telephone operator permit. I'm going to say B. If you go offshore aboard your U.S. documented or registered boat, anyone on board holding an FCC issued amateur radio license of the correct grade can work the ham radio equipment. This also holds true for your non-U.S. citizen friend who holds an FCC issued reciprocal license. So B is the correct answer. Next question. I'm going to try to move along through these as quick as possible to keep it from getting too dry on us all, because studying can be very meticulous. All right, next question. Which of the following describes authorization or licensing required when operating an amateur station aboard a U.S. registered vessel in international waters? A, any amateur license with FCC Marine or aircraft endorsement. B, any FCC issued amateur license. C, only general class or higher amateur licenses. D, an unrestricted radio telephone operator permit. I'm going to say B. If the vessel is flying an American flag, registered in the United States, any ham radio transmissions must be from an FCC licensed amateur operator or person holding the reciprocal permit for the amateur license. And again, in the previous video, I talked about how anything in the blue bold lettering in the book is kind of almost like a keyword to remember for the exam on your Element 4. Your ham license is required and is separate from the ship's marine radio license or the captain's marine radio operator permit. So the correct answer is B. And of course, you can see here, they've got a web link to the ARRL.org /regulations to help out with that there. So, move on to our next question here. If an amateur station is installed aboard a ship or aircraft, what condition must be met before a station is operated? Is it A, its operation must be approved by the master of the ship or the pilot in command of the aircraft? B, the amateur station operator must agree not to transmit when the main radio of the ship or aircraft is in use. C, the amateur station must have a power supply that is completely independent of the main ship or aircraft power supply. Or D, the amateur operator must have an FCC marine or aircraft endorsement on his or her amateur license. I'm gonna say I'm kind of torn between A and B. I'm gonna say you're probably gonna have to be approved by the captain or person in command of the aircraft or ship, and also you'd want to make sure you're operating not transmitting when their transmissions equipment are in use. But I'm gonna say A is probably more correct. All right, if you're planning a long cruise or taking a ride in a friend's airplane, make sure you have received approval by the captain, master of the ship, or aircraft pilot before you begin your transmit. Look at the three incorrect answers. They sound logical, but only the answer we just gave you is correct. So answer A is the correct answer. As I kind of go through these, I'm highlighting them so I got a little quicker reference for continuation study that I may do on my own. So, next question. What is the National Radio Quiet Zone? Is it A, an area in Puerto Rico surrounding the Arecibo Radio Telescope? An area in New Mexico surrounding the White Sands Test Area, an area surrounding the National Radio Astronomy Observatory, or is it an area in Florida surrounding Cape Canaveral? I'm going to say it's probably B. The National Radio Quiet Zone, covering parts of Maryland, West Virginia, and Virginia, has been established near the National Radio Astronomy Observatory. So, I was wrong. The answer is C. The quiet zone restriction applies to constant on stations like beacons and repeaters. Operations from your home or vehicle would not be affected unless you actually enter the observatory property in Green Bank, West Virginia. So, the correct answer is C. Something tells me I should have known that, and so I was incorrect. As you'll see as we're going, this is real-time study. I have not gone ahead. So, next question. Within what distance must an amateur station protect an FCC monitoring facility from harmful interference? Is it A, 1 mile, B, 3 miles, C, 10 miles, D, 30 miles? I seem to remember something on that. I think it's 1 mile. A. The Federal Communications Commission recently automated its monitoring stations. Now there are remote-controlled, unmanned monitoring stations, and all amateur operators within 1 mile of those stations must contact the local FCC engineer in charge to ensure that they do not cause harmful interference to the remote controlled monitoring units. So the correct answer is A, 1 mile. Next question. What must be done before placing an amateur station within an area, within an officially designated wilderness area or wildlife preserve, or in an area listed in the National Register of Historic Places? Plug my phone in so I don't go dead here. All right. Is it A, a proposal must be submitted to the National Park Service? B, a letter of intent must be filed with the Environmental Protection Agency? C, an environmental assessment must be submitted to the FCC? Or D, a Form FSD 15 must be submitted to the Department of the Interior? I'm going to say C, environmental assessment must be submitted. If you plan to install your station on a wildlife preserve or in an area listed as an historical place, you need to submit an environmental assessment to the FCC for its review and approval. Be prepared for an extremely long wait before your permit is granted. So C was the correct answer. Okay, bear with me here. Don't want to jump ahead too far with us. Okay. Resituate the next question here. Which of the following types of amateur station communications are prohibited? Is A, communications transmitted for hire on or material compensation, except as otherwise provided in the rules? B, communications that have political content, except as allowed by the Fairness Doctrine? C, communications that have a religious content? Or D, communications in a language other than English? I'm going to say D. The question deals with permissible communications from one ham to another. Political, religious, and foreign language communications are permitted, but communications transmitted for hire or material compensation are normally prohibited. The correct answer is A. So I was, ham being English as the official language is what kind of tripped myself up. So I didn't read far enough into the question. So the correct answer on that one is A. Communications transmitted for hire or material compensation, except otherwise provided by the rules. And that has also always been covered in the first two classes of our licenses. In the technician and general, it's always part of, you can't do anything that for earning money, you're, even selling equipment, stuff like that's got to be very limited. So I should have read into it a little further. Next question. And of course here in blue is another key point, talking about English language. You can speak any language on the ham bands, but always give your call sign in English. All right, next question. When many amateur stations send a message to a business... When may an amateur station send a message to a business? When the total money involved does not exceed $25, when the control operator is employed by the FCC or a government agency. C, when transmitting international third-party communications. D, when neither the amateur nor his or her employer has a pecuniary interest in the communications. I'm going to say D. 1993, the prohibited business communications rules was redefined by the FCC to allow an amateur to send a message to a business as long as neither the amateur nor his employer has a pecuniary interest in the communications. If you run a tree trimming business, it would not be legal to use an auto patch to call your answering machine to find out where your next customer is waiting. On the other hand, if you're a school teacher discovering that a big pine tree has fallen down across the school's driveway, it would be perfectly acceptable to place the auto patch call to a tree trimmer and have them come out to do their job. But could the school teacher call into the school district and tell them she's going to be late for work? Probably not legal. So the correct answer is D. As long as nobody involved is actually making money, it has an actual interest, drive for making money in it. So, next question. Which of the following types of communications may be transmitted to amateur stations in foreign countries? A. Business-related message for non-profit organizations. B. Messages intended for users of the Maritime satellite service. C. Communications incidental to the purpose of amateur service and remarks of personal nature. Or D. All of these choices are correct. I'm going to say C. A lot of times I've noticed that all of the above type stuff is always like a trick answer and is generally not correct one. But read the questions thoroughly and you'll be able to decipher it more for yourself. But on this particular one, I'm going to say the correct answer is C. With your new extra class privileges, you will likely make even more contacts in foreign countries. Remember, no business communications allowed, so keep your communications purely personal remarks or communications of a technical nature. C is the correct answer. We're going to continue to see how we're doing on time. I want to try to keep this video a little shorter than normal. Than the last one. The last one took almost a full hour, but I want to try to keep this short, but I also want to try to get through all the rules and rig questions. We'll see how far along we get. So, which of the following geographic descriptions approximately describes line A? Okay. A. A line roughly parallel to and south of the border between the U.S. and Canada. B. A line roughly parallel to and west of the U.S. Atlantic coastline. C. A line roughly parallel to the north of the border. I don't know. Is this gonna... Well, this one I have not heard before, so I am not even going to take a guess. This is kind of new. I don't recall seeing this before. So let's learn it together. The United States and Canada have adopted the Line A area as a buffer zone for certain types of radio stations. This keeps normally line-of-sight radio energy from interfering with other countries' communications. Amateur transmissions are restricted on the 70-meter band between 420 and 430 megahertz if the station is located north of the Line A. This is because Canada has a different type of radio allocation in the bottom part of the 70-meter band. The correct answer is A. And we will expose, and it kind of shows a map breakdown of it showing. So this does actually affect me because I am right smack dab in the middle of this Line A radio restrictions, because I am approximately right in this area here of New York, right off Lake Ontario and just south of the St. Lawrence River, right in the heart of the North Country, hence North Country ham. So I'm right in the smack of that zone, so I've really got to pay particular close attention. Of course, I don't operate much on the 70 cm band myself, usually just generally through local repeaters. So, but for this is a good one to know. So, let's move on to the next question here. Amateur stations may not transmit in which of the following frequency segments if they are located in the contiguous 48 states and north of Line A? Well, this is just making sure you paid attention to that first one. So it's going to be between the 420 and 430 that you were restricted. So 440 to 450, 53 to 54 megahertz. Correct answer on this is D. So this is just a repeat of the last question, just in a different way. So I'm going to say D is the correct answer. Frequencies between 420 and 430 megahertz are normally used for digital modes, fast scan television, and auxiliary links. With the Line A area along the Canadian border, U.S. hams are prohibited from operating below 430 megahertz to keep their transmissions from interfering with the different radio allocations Canada has in this frequency range. So our correct answer is D. All right, let's hit this next one here. What privileges are authorized in the U.S. to a person holding an amateur service license granted by the government of Canada? None. They must obtain a U.S. license. All privileges of amateur extra class license. The operating terms and conditions of the Canadian amateur service license not to exceed U.S. amateur class license privileges. Or D, full privileges up to and including those of amateur extra class on the 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10 meter bands. Well, I'm almost going to say if you're living in the U.S., you're going to have to get a U.S. license. So I'm going to say A. When operating in a foreign country, you need to be sure you comply with both your own license terms and those of the country in which you operate. This works both ways. For an example of Canada, when amateur radio privileges are approximately matched in most countries, in many cases, band borders are not exactly the same. Even those of Canada and the U.S., so be sure you comply with both countries' rules at the same time. So it's C. Another one I was didn't read far enough into. So you've already got a license. You just need to make sure you're complying with both where you're located and your actual class privileges. So let's get set into the next one here. Here's a little good to know portion here. Going down under, the Australian Communications and Media Authority, the ACMA, has issued a new class of license allowing visiting amateurs to operate in Australia for up to 90 days. All you have to do is use your home call sign followed by the suffix VK followed by portable and then announce your location of the station without doing anything further. Can I keep it where it stays open here? So that's a good food for thought. You may see something on that on your test too. So what is meant by IARP? Is it an international amateur radio permit that allows U.S. amateurs to operate in certain countries of the Americas? The International Amateur Radio Practices of the FCC? The indication of increased antenna reflected power? Or D, forecast of intermittent aurora radio propagation? Boy, I can't speak today. I'm kind of torn. I'm thinking the correct answer is B, but I have a feeling I might be wrong. Amateur radio is an international hobby, and we should take advantage of every opportunity to enhance our international goodwill. This often involves traveling to foreign countries. The International Amateur Radio Permit allows you to operate in many countries and in the Americas. So yeah, it is answer A, the International Amateur Radio Permit. I have definitely got some learning to do before I take my test. I'm still fairly new to the hobby myself. You know, I started out March of 2019 with getting my initial technician class. So I am definitely still learning. And the more you do, the more you learn with this hobby. Very, very true. Next question here. Which of the following operating arrangements allows an FCC licensed U.S. citizen to operate in many European countries and alien amateurs from many European countries to operate in the U.S.? Is it A, the SEPT agreement, B, AARP agreement, C, ITU reciprocal license, or D, all of these? I went too far. I wasn't even going to attempt to guess this one because I got the last one so inadvertently wrong. The SEPT agreement, European Conference of Postal and Telecommunications Administrations, SEPT, is great news for U.S. advanced and extra class amateur operators when visiting many countries in Europe. No more reciprocal paperwork. So it used to be a reciprocal paperwork. Before leaving for Europe, pack a copy of FCC Public Notice DA 16-1048 along with the original copies of your U.S. ham license. This paperwork is necessary in case you are asked about the equipment you are bringing into that country at customs. Have fun in Europe with your ham radio. So answer A is the correct one, the SEPT agreement. All right. Which of the following is required in order to operate in accordance with SEPT rules in foreign countries where permitted? Is it A, you must identify in the official language of the country which you are operating. B, the U.S. Embassy must approve your operation. C, you must bring a copy of FCC Public Notice 16-1048. Or D, you must append the SEPT to your call sign. Well, we already know C is partially correct, if not the correct answer, because it talks about it in the previous one here, that and a copy of your license is what you need to bring. So I'm going to say it is C. The Central European Postal and Telecommunications Authority is the FCC for much of Europe. If you travel there, you may operate in participating countries by presenting proof of citizenship, your license, and a copy of the Public Notice 16-1048. Note the SEPT for much of Europe is only automatically available to advanced and extra class amateurs, which is yet another incentive to go to your extra class. So C was the correct answer. Okay, we're hitting just about 30 minutes so far on the questions. I am not sure how many more are here in the rules and regs portion. Quite a few more, so I don't think I'm going to get to all of them today. Well, maybe we'll try to. I might go for longer than a half an hour on this one. This is probably the biggest section. Just for good food for thought and good to know stuff, here's a list of the SEPT countries as of February 2020 of this year. Full list of all the countries that are participating in the SEPT. And also good to know, European reciprocal licenses are now limited to advanced and extra class licenses. So you have to have either the advanced or the extra class in order to take advantage of this. Full SEPT privileges only to those U.S. citizens hold an FCC issued advanced or amateur extra class. So let's get on to this next question here. If a station in a message forwarding system inadvertently forwards a message that is in violation of FCC rules, who is primarily accountable for the new rules violation? The control operator of the packet bulletin board station, the control operator of the originating station, the control operators of all the stations in the system, the control operators of all the stations in the system not authenticating the source from which they accept communications. Let's see here. A few years ago, dozens of amateur operators were sent greetings from the FCC for taking part in forwarding a packet radio message that contained materials specifically prohibited by the rules and regulations. The hams forwarding the messages claimed everything was in automatic mode and was not up to them to censor what was coming down to the electronic data line. Hence, new rules hold the control operator of the station originating the message as primary accountable. So the originating station is who primarily accountable for the violation. And the control operator of the first forwarding station accountable for any violation of the rules. More specifically, everyone else down the line is no longer responsible for the message content, but must shut down their packet bulletin boards if informed that there is a message being automatically forwarded that violates the FCC rules, and that's Rule 97.219. So answer B, it is the control operator of the originating station. So you're not accountable if you're forwarding the message on, but as soon as you're notified, you basically need to make sure you're no longer forwarding or posting that bulletin for that message. Move on to the next page here. Okay. What action or actions should you take if your digital message forwarding station inadvertently forwards a communication that violates FCC rules? A, discontinuing forwarding the communications as soon as you become aware of it. Notify the originating station if communication does not comply with the rules. Notify the nearest FCC field engineer office. Or D, all these are correct. Me personally, I think you should do all of that, but A is the most straightforward of all of them. If you're advised that your packet station is automatically forwarding communications in violation of the rules, get on the computer and discontinue forwarding this specific communication as you become aware of it. You may continue forward all other messages. So A is the correct one. It was the most precise and straightforward. And again, there in blue, you see discontinue forwarding this specific message. So that's very, pick yourself up one of these books, follow along, go through it yourself. I didn't use one of these for my first two tests. I used online apps on my phone and tablet that were very, very good as well. But I'm liking the book. When may an automatically controlled station originate third-party communications? A, never. B, only when transmitting RTTY or data emissions. C, when agreed upon by the sending and receiving station. D, when approved by the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. The question asks, may an automatically controlled station originate third-party communications? The answer is never. Because a third party without a ham license may not be designated by the first control operator to assume the control control operator function required to originate that third party communication. It takes a licensed control operator to initiate an unattended auto start station that may be handling the third party traffic. Handling. Yeah. So correct answer is A. How do the control operator responsibilities of a station under automatic control differ from one under local control? A, under local control, there is no control operator. B, under automatic control, the control operator is not required to be present at the control point. C, under automatic control, there is no control operator. D, under local control, a control operator is not required to be present at the control point. I'm going to say B. Repeaters under automatic control don't have anyone sitting at the distant control point. So the correct answer is B. And there's something here, a link for WinLink, and a little depiction here, kind of showing a little bit of what they're talking about. So B is the correct answer. So as you can see here, kind of shows you fixed control station, the repeater on, transmits on, and like to mobile rigs. So, your repeater control is kind of what they're getting at. So, what indicator is required to be used in U.S. license operators when operating a station via remote control and the remote transmitter is located in the U.S.? Is it stroke followed by the USPS two-letter abbreviation for the state in which the remote station is located? Is it stroke R pound, where pound is the district of the remote station? Is it stroke followed by the ARRL section of the remote station? Or D, no additional indicator is required? Why? They're really hitting the weeds on us here. I don't think there's anything additional required. In the past, non-home based amateur communications were much more restricted and required specific identifiers. Remote control designators are no longer required during your ID, but you are certainly free to indicate your remote control status. So D is the correct answer. What is the maximum permissible duration of a remotely controlled station's transmission if its control link malfunctions? A, 30 seconds, B, 3 minutes, C, 5 minutes, D, 10 minutes. I'm going to say 3 minutes. If a distant remotely controlled station is undergoing remote controlled tone commands from an auxiliary station and the control link on microwave fails, that remote controlled station must shut down within 3 minutes. And that's Rule 97.213. So the correct answer is B. Hence, on your repeaters, when somebody's talking too long and they talk about timing out the repeater, you're hitting that 3-minute mark on your transmission. So, what must the control operator of a repeater operating in the 70 cm band do if a radio location system experiences interference from that repeater? Cease operation or make changes to the repeater to mitigate the interference. File an FAA NOTAM, notice to airmen, with a repeater system ERP call sign and 6-character grid locator. Reduce the repeater antenna height above average terrain. Or D, all these choices are correct. I'm going to say A. In many parts of the country, the 70 meter CM amateur band is secondary shared allocation, with some military and commercial users having priority. If a repeater operator is notified that the repeater is interfering with radio allocation service or radio location service or other primary entity, the repeater must cease operation or make whatever changes to the repeater are necessary to eliminate the interference. So A is the correct answer. Who may be the control operator of an auxiliary station? Is it A, any licensed amateur operator, B, only technician, general, advanced, or amateur extra class operators, C, only general, advanced, or amateur extra, or D, only amateur extra operators? I'm going to say A. An amateur radio auxiliary station is a transceiver under your local control which remotely controls another station, like a mountaintop repeater or a distant high ridge crossband system. And any amateur radio operator, except novice class, may set up and be the control operator of an auxiliary station. While novice and advanced class licenses no longer being issued, there are hams who still hold valid novice and advanced extra classes. B. So, yeah, any license of the current license scheme. So, tech, general, or advanced and amateur extra class. See here, checking on my time. We're getting... Ooh, look at that. I failed there. I revealed too much. All right. How do ALE stations establish contact? ALE constantly scans a list of frequencies, activating the radio when the designated call sign is received. ALE radio monitors an internet site for the frequency they are being paged on. ALE radios send a constant tone code to establish frequency for the future use. ALE radios activate when they hear the signal echoed by the backscatter. ALE is an automatic link establishment. It's been around for a while, primarily on military and commercial HF circuits, but has only recently become common on all amateur bands. The ALE, this is in blue, protocol scans a list of HF frequencies and pings a remote station to find out which frequency has the best propagation. ALE can be used with any transmission mode, so it is not really a mode in itself. So answer A. It constantly scans a list of frequencies, activating a radio when it does a call sign is received. So, operating digital is a great way to marry your computer to your ham rig as an extra class operator. And that's a picture of somebody using FL Digi. It looks like FL Digi screen format. So, let's move on to the next one here real quick. Which of the following amateur stations may transmit one-way communications? A space station, beacon station, or telecommand station? A local repeater or linked repeater station? A message forwarding station, automatically controlled as digital? Or all these choices are correct? Boy, do I want to guess at that one. I'm going to say C. As a general rule, amateur radio stations are prohibited from broadcasting, which is one-way transmission, to unspecified recipients, except to the non-broadcasting rule, which provided for space beacon telecommunication stations, as well as code practice. So the correct answer was A. So I was wrong again. Correct answer A, space station beacon. I almost feel like I'm reading too much into them, and I'm not reading enough into them. What is the maximum permitted transmitter output when operating a model craft by telecommand? 1 watt, 2 watts, 5 watts, or D, 100 watts? Radio control of a model vehicle is as old as amateur radio itself. Because radio control transmissions are generally not identified, there is a restriction of RC power to 1 watt. This is more than enough power for just about any practical remote control operation. So the answer is A, 1 watt. And with that, I think I'm gonna, still got a fair amount left in the rules and regs, which is a fairly lengthy session, and it is a good majority of the question pool. If we go back to the one page where, commission rules, number of questions 75, and it is one of the, other than power circuits, it is got the majority of the question, a good majority of the questions on the test. So commission rules, first section. That and power circuits are like the some of the larger question pools that you can see here. Like antennas and feed lines has a lot of questions too. So those are your 3 main, and there's a lot of questions in there. So it's going to take a while trying to alleviate. This is going to be more than just a few video sessions that I'm looking at. So I appreciate you studying along with me today. Well, I appreciate everybody joining in today. Again, please leave comments below. Give me some feedback. Let me know some ideas you might have that we can improve this and make it even more detailed study session for all of us to be able to upgrade our license. And remember to hit that subscribe button and like the videos. It helps get it out there to everybody. And thanks again for watching. And let's get on the air.